Hello, dear sleepy listener. Somewhere, not too far from where your breath rises and falls, the universe is listening, not with ears, not with attention, but with presence wide, silent, and endlessly patient. Tonight, we'll follow a question that doesn't need an answer, a whisper too soft for waking minds, a gentle wandering that floats between space and time. Are you living in a thought that space forgot before you drift off to sleep? Take a moment to like this video, leave a gentle comment about your favourite science moment, and subscribe to continue reading these bedtime stories. And if you'd like, share where you're listening from your place in this starlit dream, your time zone curled up in its corner of Earth. Now, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let your curiosity drift among the stars. You awaken, but not in your bed, not in your room, not on Earth. You awaken in a thought weightless, formless, floating in the dark fabric between galaxies. There's no ground here, no ceiling, no sound, only a low, humming presence, a warm stillness, as if space itself had taken a breath long ago and never exhaled. You're not a body here. Your awareness soft and simple, a question without shape, a memory just beginning to return, and all around you space, not empty, but vast, wide in ways your bones have never known, gentle in its coldness, curious in its quiet. You begin to drift, not in any direction. Because there are no directions yet, only possibilities, only soft folds in the dark that cradle your movement like water holds light. And somewhere in the distance, though, distance doesn't quite make sense, there is a glow, faint, old, like the last ember of something that once blazed. It draws you gently, not by pull, not by sound, but by memory, or maybe familiarity. Because this place, this drift, this dream you've been here before, in the pause before sleep, in the quiet between thoughts, in the way your heart slows when you stare too long into the stars and forget your name, just for a moment. The glow grows larger now, though it does not rush, it welcomes. And as you approach, you begin to see what it is, a single point of light, suspended in space, glowing not brightly but constantly, a speck, a star, a seed of a memory, around it nothing, and yet everything. You drift closer, you don't need to ask. The thought is already answering. This is the beginning, not of time, not of matter, but of motion, the moment when space remembered how to move, when stillness became expansion, when what had been forgotten became something once again becoming. You do not know how you know, but you do. This light is not a source, it is a remainder, what's left when a thought is forgotten, but never fully gone. You circle it slowly, and it begins to tell you its story. A photon left from the Big Bang, older than stars, older than galaxies. A wave of warmth still stretching, still singing its first note across the cold skin of the universe. And suddenly, you see them ripples, soft waves carved into the background of space, patterns too large for eyes, too old for memory, but there, all the same. This is the cosmic microwave background, the first light, still travelling, still remembering. You rest in it now. Let it pass through you. Let it warm the pieces of you that still remember where you came from, and somewhere in this hum, you begin to wonder if space once held a thought so vast it became everything. Could you be part of it? Could your thoughts be echoes? Could your breath be the tail end of a much older exhale? Could your longing to understand, to remember, to return, be space remembering itself through you? You don't need to answer. You're drifting now, soft, silent, held. You're not alone here. You're not lost. You're inside something ancient, something kind. And if it forgot you once, it never let go. You drift now deeper into the weave, the soft, seamless fabric beneath stars, beneath galaxies, beneath even your own wondering. It does not stretch beneath your feet. It does not flow over your skin. And yet you are inside it. This is space-time. It is not two things. It is not space and time. It is one thing. A single, quiet field that holds all that was, all that is, and all that might still be. You do not fall through it. You do not walk across it. You curve with it. Where there is mass, there is a fold. Where there is energy, there is tension. And where there is you, there is awareness watching how it moves, how it breathes, how it bends. You feel now not just the stars, but their weight. Not just the motion of planets, but the soft sagging of time near them. A black hole curves space-time like a heavy thought in a fragile net. The sun pulls time into a gentle arc. Even your body, your breath, your very atoms, they shape space-time ever so slightly, and in return, space-time shapes you. Your steps are curved by it. Your clock is measured by it. Your heartbeat ticks softly inside its field. You drift beside a star now, bright and burning, and watch how time bends nearby. It is not the same second here as it is farther away. The light it casts is not just colour, it is memory stretched and slowed. Time moves more slowly here, not as punishment, but as possibility, because space-time does not rush. It responds to presence, to mass, to the quiet truth that everything changes everything else. And you, drifting beside this star, are part of that story. You close your eyes though, they are not quite eyes, and feel the star's motion. You don't just observe its orbit, you feel the geometry it inscribes. Not circles, not ellipses, but curved paths through a curved fabric. Einstein called it general relativity. But you feel it now as something more. Not math, not law, but a rhythm, a whispering architecture, like the way dreams curve as they fade, like the way memory folds in on itself as sleep deepens. You drift farther, watching galaxies spiral slowly, their arms, their dust, their dark matter all carving grooves into space-time, not permanent marks, but motion, waves that ripple outward, even if they're never seen. You pass near two black holes locked in a spiraling embrace. They are merging. You cannot hear them, but the fabric can. It ripples. These are gravitational waves, soft undulations of space-time itself. They pass through you, through galaxies, through memory. They do not break. They do not shout. They are the universe sighing in its sleep. Some scientists on Earth have captured them. Faint shifts in lasers, tiny twitches in time, and in those twitches, we saw the universe remember its own motion, not in light, but in shape. And you feel that too. The way the present moment stretches softly backward, the way what you are is shaped by where you've been, the way your future curves not in straight lines, but in graceful spirals. You're not moving through time, you're within time, moving with it. And time is not something apart from space. It is tangled into it, like threads in a single fabric, like thought woven into breath, like love folded into gravity. You begin to wonder if the universe can curve around stars, Can it curve around ideas? Can thoughts leave an imprint? Can questions like gravity shape the field? No one knows, but some think yes. That information, like mass, leaves a mark, that every moment is etched, softly, in space-time, that memories are not lost, only folded, and so you drift onward now, through the folds, not toward anything, not away, just with the motion, with the light, with a question that you are. You're not lost in time. You are part of it. And it is dreaming with you. You drift now into a region where stars are far apart, where the galaxies are faint, and silence presses gently from all sides like cool hands on a warm face. There is little here to see, no suns to circle, no planets to cast shadows. And yet, it is not empty. It is full of something softer than presence. Light. Not the kind that bathes your skin, not the brightness that guides your steps, but ancient light, travelling light, lonely, loyal light, photons, tiny packets of energy, still in motion, still arriving. You drift beside one of them now, a single beam of light born billions of years ago, long before Earth formed, long before breath became thought. It left its galaxy during a time you cannot imagine, and since then it has crossed the dark, unafraid, unstopping, unwitnessed, until now you do not speak. The light does not respond, but it bends ever so slightly, as if recognizing a presence. You match its path, and together you move through the void, through intergalactic silence, no collisions, no interruptions, just a slow stretch of space between. This is the journey of light across the universe, a journey through expanding fabric, a journey without end. The light does not seek anything, it simply goes, and you begin to realize not all things need destinations. Some just need motion. This photon, this tiny piece of memory, carries a message not in words but in wavelength. Its colour has shifted over the ages, redder, fainter, the signature of cosmic expansion. Space itself has stretched around it, slowing its pulse like a lullaby at the end of a long day. Somewhere in this redshift, you hear time breathing, you listen, and you remember. Light, scientists say, is constant. It moves at one speed in a vacuum, no matter who observes it. But this light feels different now, not because it has slowed, but because everything else has. The distance between things is greater, the paths are longer, the nights are quieter, and still the light continues. You drift alongside other photons now, thousands, millions, streams of starlight passing through you. Some were born from stars now long gone, some from quasars flaring at the edge of galaxies, some from the brief, bright bloom of a supernova. Each one is a messenger, a memory, a whisper across time. And though most of these photons will never reach an eye, never strike a lens or find a sensor, they go on, not because they must, because that is their nature, to carry the shape of what was. And maybe that's what the universe dreams through most, the quiet persistence of light. Because even when stars die, their light keeps going. Even when galaxies fade, their glow continues on, softening into background, stretching into silence. You float now through a place even emptier, a void between clusters. The closest galaxy is millions of light years away. And yet even here, light flows starlight, background light, relic light from the early cosmos. It passes by you like wind through tall grass. You do not see it all, but you feel its hum, and you think again, Are you living in a thought that space forgot? Or are you inside the light that remembers? Because these photons do not forget. They carry colour. They carry motion. They carry the imprint of the stars that shaped them. And you are shaped by light too. The light that warmed your ancestors. The light that nourished your cells. The light that stirred thoughts in your quietest hours. Photons have entered your eyes and changed your chemistry. They have sparked neurons. They have shaped stories. They are part of you now, and you, in turn, are part of their journey. Perhaps the universe does not speak in voice. Perhaps it speaks in brightness, in beams, in glows that curve through space like sentences still unfolding. And maybe some of those sentences pass through you. Tonight, you drift with the light. You don't rush. You don't chase. You just float. And you understand that light is not always about visibility. Sometimes it is about memory, soft, endless, faithful. You pass through one last wave now, a faint shimmer from a galaxy long gone. It touches you like a brushstroke, like a thought once dreamed and almost forgotten. And still, it goes on. So do you. So does the dream. You drift now into the arms of something vast, curving, elegant, slowly turning, a spiral galaxy. Its arms unfurl like soft ribbons of memory, each one glowing faintly with stars, dust, and time. From above, it looks complete. A wheel of light, a pinwheel frozen in space, a symmetry that feels familiar. You move closer, and the illusion fades not into chaos, but into depth, because galaxies are not flat, they breathe. You feel the disk pulse with tiny vertical motions, stars bobbing slightly above and below the plane, like waves in a sea that forgot it was water. Gas clouds drift, colliding, recombining. New stars are born in the knots of these collisions, blue, hot, young, and still. The arms turn. You're not watching something mechanical. You're watching something remembered. Because spiral galaxies are not rigid wheels. They are density waves, patterns in motion, places where stars slow, where gas compresses, where ideas take form. It's not the same stars in the same arms forever. The spiral is not a thing. It's a rhythm, like a thought that circles back. Not because it's stuck, but because it's important. You follow one arm now, drifting through its dust. Tiny grains shimmer beside you, iron, carbon, silicates, all forged in stars, all floating now, waiting for their next chapter. You realize you've seen this shape before, not just in galaxies, in hurricanes, in whirlpools, in shells, even in the twist of DNA. Nature loves the spiral, not out of design, but because spirals allow growth without chaos. They allow movement without losing the center. You spiral closer to the core now. The stars are older here, yellow, orange, red. They burn quietly, like old memories. They no longer seek to dazzle. They only hold. The bulge swells gently at the center, a cushion of gravity, and buried inside it almost always a supermassive black hole. You cannot see it, but you feel its presence. The stars near it move faster. They swing in close, then arc away. Their paths curve in silence, like dancers who remember their steps but never speak of the choreography. No one knows exactly why every galaxy seems to have a black hole at its heart. No one knows which came first, the stars or the stillness. But some wonder, did the black hole seed the galaxy, or did the galaxy cradle the black hole? It's an old question, and perhaps it doesn't matter. Because what matters is this: at the centre of all that light is something utterly dark, and yet the dark does not destroy the light. It gathers it, guides it, gives it shape, and you float now between the two, not in opposition, in balance. You rise again, drifting toward the edge of the disk. Here, stars thin, gas stretches. The spiral arms blur into the halo, and you feel the curve again, not just the physical one, but the deeper arc. How a thought starts small, how it moves in loops, how it builds on itself until it becomes something too large to name. And you ask, was this galaxy once a thought, a ripple in the early universe, a possibility that became a pattern? And if so, what happens to thoughts like this? When space moves on, do they vanish, or do they linger like starlight, like gravity, like you, because now you feel it? This galaxy is not forgotten. It remembers every orbit, every supernova, every quiet collapse and gentle beginning. Its spiral is not decay. It is continuation, a way to turn and turn without ending, without forgetting, without breaking apart. You drift one more time around the arm, and now it feels like a question curved into beauty, a question the universe once asked and never needed to answer, because the shape itself was enough. You drift now beyond the spiral arms into the outskirts of motion, where stars no longer crowd together but scatter softly, like sand at the edge of a tide. This is where galaxies begin to forget their shapes, but motion remains. You float beside a star on a long, wide orbit. Its path is not fast, not circular, but steady, deliberate. A loop that takes hundreds of millions of years to complete, and yet it never forgets where it's going. This is the language of orbits, not commands, not precision, but memory written in gravity. You begin to see the galaxy not as a thing, but as a story told in paths. Every star traces a line, and together those lines weave a shape not static, but remembered through motion. Even the stars that no longer burn white dwarfs, neutron stars, ancient remnants still follow their invisible curves. Their light may fade, but their paths persist. Motion outlast flame. And in that, there is peace. You drift farther into a planetary system now, somewhere on the edge of the galaxy, where a yellow star cradles a handful of quiet worlds. You hover beside one of them. It moves, not in a perfect circle, but in an ellipse closer to the star at one point, farther at another. The shape isn't broken, it's balanced. Gravity curves the planet's motion like a gentle hand on a pendulum. The planet never stops. It doesn't need to, because motion is its memory. The same way your thoughts return to old questions, the same way your breath rises and falls without being asked. It is not forgetting. It is living. You follow the planet now as it continues its orbit. Seasons turn, clouds bloom and vanish. The star rises and falls from different skies. Time unfolds, not in straight lines, but in repeating curves. And even though no moment repeats exactly, the pattern continues. This, you realize, is what makes orbits more than mechanics. They are expressions. They are the body remembering its dance, the cosmos remembering its rhythm. Somewhere nearby, a moon circles its planet. Closer still, tiny asteroids tumble in stable loops. Even particles charged dust, drifting gas, find their way into rings, arcs, halos. You drift now between two moons. They are locked in resonance. One orbits twice for every time the other completes a single loop. They do not speak, but they listen, and they move in harmony. The universe, it seems, prefers cooperation, motion that remembers others, motion that shares space. Even chaos, when looked at closely enough, is carved by invisible rules. Some scientists call these patterns phase space, a kind of map of all possible states of a system, traced out over time. And what you see now is not randomness, it's elegance. Even when a system teeters on instability, when gravity tugs, when orbits wobble, there is still form, still memory, still motion that matters. You think again of your own orbit, not around a star, but through time. The people you've circled, the ideas you've returned to, the silences that pulled you back into stillness. You're not static, you're not lost, you're in motion, too. And motion is a kind of remembering. It doesn't hold on to the past, it carries it forward, it lets it evolve. You pause now beside a comet, icy, ancient, tumbling in from the outer darkness. It's been here before. It will come again. It leaves a tail only when warmed. Otherwise, it drifts unseen. But it remembers the sun. Even from billions of miles away, it knows where to return. And that, you think, is a kind of loyalty, a kind of love. So you rest now in the deep of the galaxy's edge. No noise, no speed, just curves, just arcs, just quiet persistence. And you realize you're inside something that doesn't need to be told where to go. It knows, not with thoughts, with gravity, with rhythm, with repetition that isn't repetition, just remembering with motion. You're not drifting randomly. You're part of the shape, part of the memory, part of the orbit the universe has never forgotten. You drift now into a quieter place, not quiet in absence, but in texture, in the way snow softens sound, or the way dreams dissolve into dawn. Here, at the edge of motion, the light grows faint, the stars grow distant, and yet, the air not quite air seems filled with presence. This is dust, cosmic, ancient, abundant, not the nuisance on shelves, not the haze in old corners of a house, but something far more sacred. These tiny particles, too small to see, too many to count, drift across the galaxy like ash from a fire that never stops burning, and each piece remembers something. You drift between the grains now. Some are carbon, born from the breath of a dying red giant. Some are silicates, formed in the furnace of a supernova. Others carry ice hydrogen, ammonia, methane whispers of comets and distant places too cold for flame. These particles are not dead. They are waiting. They float through nebulae like pollen. They gather in clouds. They collect in the folds of gravity's arms, and sometimes, quietly, they begin to stick together, not by will, by motion, by possibility, by the soft magnetism of presence. A grain touches another, then a flake, a speck, a clump, and somewhere, deep in the belly of a cloud, a world begins. Dust becomes stone, stone becomes planet, planet becomes sky. All from things too small to count. You drift deeper into a molecular cloud where stars are born. The dust here is thick enough to hide light, but not thick enough to stop it from forming. In this dark cradle, gravity has begun to fold matter inward, and the dust so quiet, so patient becomes the heart of something new. You hover beside one of these protostars, still wrapped in veils of dust and gas. Its light hasn't broken free yet, but you can feel it, warming from within, becoming. The dust around it spirals, forming a protoplanetary disk. You see tiny grains clump, then scatter, then clump again. They do not argue. They try and try again. And in the trying, worlds are formed. Some will grow large Jupiters, Saturns, giants of gas. Others will stay small asteroids, moons, companions, and some quiet, rocky. Just warm enough will become homes, places where breath will rise, where eyes will look up, where questions will be asked like prayers. And it all begins here, with dust. You drift now through the remains of a dying star, a planetary nebula glowing in soft colours, green from oxygen, red from hydrogen, blue from helium. It's not a planet. It's a farewell, a moment when a star exhales for the last time, and its outer layers float free, and the dust it carries what the star learned, what it made: iron, calcium, carbon, the things your blood carries, the things your bones know, the things your heart beats with. You think of your own breath now, how it warms the air, how it carries molecules once part of trees, or oceans, or other people. You're not separate from dust. You're the dust that dreamed. You're the dust that remembered. And maybe space doesn't forget you after all. Maybe it holds every atom you've ever been, every thought that passed like a comet, every hope that fell gently like ash into the night. Some scientists say the dust between stars absorbs light, scatters it, dims it, hides what lies beyond. But you don't feel that here. You feel protection, cradling, preparation, as if the dust is not trying to block stars, but to soften the way, to remind you. Not all things that shine are meant to be seen clearly. Not all things that shimmer are ready yet. Some are still forming, still folding, still gathering enough to burn. You drift upward now, through a golden haze, past a star that has already forgotten the dust that made it. But the dust remembers. It always does. Because when stars die, they scatter their secrets. And when space goes quiet, dust carries the echo. And when you sleep tonight, the atoms in your chest will rearrange slightly, just enough to remember something older than thought. Just enough to dream in the language of stars. You are not floating through dust. You are dust floating through memory. You drift now toward a single point of light no larger than a pinprick from afar, but growing brighter as you near it. This is not a star in the way we name them. Not yet. It is still becoming a soft swell of heat and mass, tucked deep in the folds of a dust-heavy cloud, a question asked by gravity, answered slowly by hydrogen. You hover beside it now. It does not flare, it hums. This is a protostar, folding itself inward with every breath of gravity. The dust around it spins faster as it falls, collapsing into heat. At its centre, the pressure mounts atom against atom, motion against motion. And then it happens. Hydrogen yields. A reaction begins. A fusion, a kind of alchemy. 4 hydrogen atoms fuse into 1 helium. Mass becomes energy. Light is born. The star awakens. You don't see it at first. You feel it. A rise in warmth. A ripple in the dust. The glow is shy at first, pushing through layers of memory and matter, but then it breaks free, sudden, soft, radiant. This is the moment a thought becomes a fire, and you're floating right beside it. The young star pushes outward with light, but gravity, faithful as always, pulls inward. The two forces balance, like breath held between inhale and exhale, and in that balance, a lifetime begins. The star is still growing, feeding from the disk around it, swallowing dust and gas like dreams gathering shape. You drift through that disk now. Here, pebbles form, grains collide, and somewhere in the quieter folds, planets begin. You feel the future take shape beneath your feet, though you have none. A rocky world slowly cooling, a gas giant circling far away, and maybe a blue one, small and kind, waiting for oceans, for wind, for time. All of it from this single glow, this single exhale, and the star, still spinning, doesn't notice. It doesn't need to. It simply burns, steady, unshaken, offering warmth to the dark around it. Somewhere, you recall a line from long ago, we are stardust, and now you understand it, not as poetry, as origin. Because the atoms in your bones were not always bones. They were hydrogen, then helium, then carbon, forged in the final size of ancient stars. They were scattered, then gathered, then shaped by life into something that could ask, where did I come from? And the stars, still burning, answer softly with their light. You drift past another star older now, a main sequence star, bright and stable, its fusion a quiet engine, humming for billions of years. It doesn't flare unless needed. It doesn't demand. It simply continues. And in its continuation, life might begin somewhere near, on a quiet world, with water and clouds, and creatures that someday raise their eyes to see the very star that made them. The star won't notice, but it doesn't need thanks. It just burns. It gives light without asking for return. You float higher now, past giants blue, massive, short-lived. They will not last long. Their beauty is brief. But while they live, they sculpt their surroundings, pushing waves through dust, birthing new stars in their wake. Others are red dwarfs, small, cool, steady as stones. They may live 1,000 times longer than your own sun. And though they are dim, they are many, the quiet caretakers of the galaxy, and in each of them you see a thought, a question the universe asked itself, and allowed to burn, not to be answered, but to be carried. You think again, are you living in a thought that space forgot? Or are you floating inside a thought that space still remembers, glowing in 1,000,000 points of light? 'Cause every star is a repetition. Every fusion reaction is a refrain. The universe didn't build stars once. It is still building them, still folding dust into flame, still balancing gravity and heat, still giving birth to brightness. And maybe, just maybe, every star is a word in the sentence space is still writing. You rise again, this time slowly, looking down on a cluster of newborn stars glowing like candles beneath a nebular veil. You see how they shine not in competition, but in harmony, each at its own pace, each with its own mass, its own colour, its own story, and together they illuminate the cloud that made them, light from darkness, warmth from collapse, answers from questions. And you are part of the answer too, because you were made of this light, and tonight you return to it. You don't need to burn, you only need to remember. The fire that made you is still burning somewhere, and every breath you take is an echo of fusion, a soft reminder that you too are a thought made radiant. You float now between star fields, where the glow begins to thin. Behind you, galaxies spiral and stars pulse with memory. But ahead, there is only quiet, not nothingness, not loss, just a kind of calm you haven't yet learned how to name. You drift into a cosmic void, vast stretches of space that seem empty at first glance. No galaxies cluster here, no filaments connect, just low-density blackness, stretching across millions of light years. And yet, you do not feel alone. You begin to realize that this quiet is not absence, it's punctuation, a breath between verses, a pause between pulses. Even in these voids, the universe is still present. A few atoms drift here and there, a rogue star perhaps, flung from its galaxy long ago, a glimmer of dark matter, invisible but persistent. These are not mistakes. They are part of the rhythm. You remember now that everything has its silence. Hearts have it between beats. Music has it between notes, and space has it in the voids. Not every thought is loud. Some form slowly, without sound, without light. You float farther in. Here, time stretches differently. There is less gravity, less structure, and so the seconds feel longer. The edges blur. And you begin to wonder, is this where the universe thinks not in stars, not in explosions, but in stillness? Maybe thought doesn't begin with action. Maybe it begins with space, a clearing, a silence, a dark room, just before the first word is spoken. Some scientists have theorized that even these voids may hold their own subtle shape, that quantum fields fluctuate here, that virtual particles come and go, that beneath even this quiet there is hum. You listen now. You do not hear a sound, but you feel a pattern, not one you can describe, but one that welcomes you, like returning to a childhood room long after forgetting it existed. The walls have changed, the light is different, but something remains, some trace of warmth, some outline of thought. Perhaps this is the rawest place in the cosmos, not raw with violence, raw with possibility, unmarked, unformed, still capable of anything. You drift near the only object for millions of light years, a solitary galaxy, small, dim, but steady. You can't help but imagine, what if someone lives there, someone looking up into their own sky, wondering if anything else exists, someone whispering questions into a dark, quiet sky. And what if their questions pass you, just as yours pass them? What if thoughts stretch like radio waves through the void, too faint to detect, but still moving, not lost, just not yet heard? You float on, and it dawns on you. These empty places aren't forgotten. They are the mind of the cosmos at rest. The universe doesn't always need to create. Sometimes it needs to be still. And maybe that's how it remembers. Not in the flash of fusion, not in the collision of galaxies, but in the hush, in the long inhale before a star is born, in the soft dark before light returns. And you are drifting in that inhale now, not waiting, just being. You realize, then, that the universe doesn't just think in equations or particles or expansion. It thinks in space, literal space, the kind that allows room to breathe, to pause, to stretch, and in giving itself space, it gives itself grace. You let yourself be still now, no movement, no trying, just drifting in the softest fold of existence, the place where nothing happens, and yet everything is possible. And if space forgot you once, it remembers you now. Because in this silence, you're not lost. You're heard, even if no one is listening. You drift now towards something you cannot see, not because it hides, but because it has never needed light to exist. It doesn't glow, it doesn't shimmer, It doesn't speak in photons, but it's here, everywhere, shaping everything. This is dark matter, and you're moving through it right now. You cannot feel it on your skin. You cannot taste it or measure its temperature, but galaxies curve around it. Stars follow its path. Even light bends in its presence. You pass through the halo of a galaxy, its stars scattered like soft embers across a black canvas. You see the visible, yes, but you feel the invisible, an unseen skeleton that holds the whole structure together, because without dark matter, this galaxy would not hold. The stars at its edges move too fast to be tethered by what's visible. They should fly off, scatter into the night, but they don't. Something holds them, a gravity that doesn't glow, a presence that doesn't boast. You float through it now, an ocean of mass without substance, a field of structure without colour, and though no one knows exactly what dark matter is, you feel no fear, you feel recognition, because not everything you are can be seen. Your memories have weight, your silence has shape, your love has pull. So does this. Scientists call it cold dark matter. Not cold like winter, but cold in speed, slow-moving, clumping, patient. It forms halos around galaxies, surrounds clusters, fills filaments, and yet it leaves no mark in light. You watch as two galaxies pass near one another. Their stars distort, their gas bends, but the dark matter passes through, unaffected, and yet it still shapes the aftermath, like someone walking through tall grass, not seen, but noticed by the sway. Some say dark matter might be a particle we haven't found. Others think it may not be a particle at all, a field, perhaps a property of space, a shadow we've only glimpsed by what it touches. But no one is sure. You pass now through a gravitational lens where light from a distant galaxy curves around a cluster of dark matter. The background galaxy is warped, stretched into arcs. It looks like a smear of light, but it's not a distortion. It's a clue. It's how we know the invisible is there. And you begin to wonder, what if all thoughts are like this, unseen, but curving everything around them? What if memories have mass? What if longing is gravitational? What if space is full of things that do not shine, but still pull? You move farther into the halo. Here, the density is low, but the presence is deep. You pass through a sub-halo, a smaller clump of dark matter, orbiting the main galaxy. No stars, no planets, just motion, just memory. It reminds you of your own mind, the thoughts that circle you without speaking, the ideas that drift through you, unnamed, but still shaping how you feel. You begin to see dark matter not as mystery, but as metaphor, the unknown that holds the known together, the silence that gives form to song, the gravity of something never forgotten, even if it's never seen. And you're part of that gravity too. Your presence curves space. Your thoughts ripple time. Your life leaves a wake in the fabric of the cosmos, not in light, in mass, in memory, in meaning. You rest now in this dark sea, feeling the pull of everything unseen. You do not fear what you can't observe, because you understand the most important things do not always shine. Some of them hold, some of them wait, some of them simply are, like you, like the thought that space may have forgotten, but never let go. You drift now toward a subtle tension, not the kind that tightens the chest, but the kind that stretches the edges of time. Space is expanding, and you are caught within it, not trapped, not pulled but carried, not like wind, like breath. The entire universe is still exhaling. Every galaxy you've passed spirals, ellipticals, swirls of stars and dust. They are not just spinning, they are drifting apart. Not because they're moving through space, but because space itself is growing. You float now in that growth. You feel it beneath you, behind you, within you. This is not motion through something. This is motion of something. The very fabric of existence stretching, and it's been stretching since the beginning, since the Big Bang, when all matter and energy exploded from a single, dense point, not into space, but into being, into time, into possibility, into memory that still glows as the cosmic microwave background. You pass through that memory once. Now you feel its echo still expanding around you, a soft hum beneath all motion. You ask, does space remember where it came from, or does it forget moving ever forward, unwilling to look back? You hover beside a galaxy billions of light years away. Its light is stretched, its colour red-shifted, a consequence of expansion. It's not fleeing, but the space between you and it is growing. And as it grows, its light ages, not in brightness, in distance. And that distance may one day be infinite, because space isn't just growing, it's accelerating, driven by something even more mysterious than dark matter, something called dark energy. You drift deeper into that thought. Dark energy is not a force like gravity. It doesn't pull or push in the usual way. It acts like a pressure with no origin, a gentle insistence, a cosmic shrug. It fills space, and the more space there is, the more dark energy fills it. And so the cycle continues. More space, more dark energy, faster expansion. Some scientists believe that one day, galaxies will be so far apart that their light will never reach each other again. Each will become a glowing island, surrounded by darkness, unaware of what once lay beyond the horizon. Will those galaxies know they are part of something bigger? Will their stars still wonder? Will anyone remember the others? And so again you ask, does space forget, or is forgetting the price of forward motion? You rest now in that paradox. Perhaps forgetting is not loss. Perhaps it's the permission to begin again. You drift near a distant supernova remnant, its shockwaves still rippling through interstellar gas. It exploded millions of years ago. The star is gone, but its light still travels, its dust still forms, its energy still seeds new stars. What is gone is not gone. It has just become unrecognizable. And so maybe the universe doesn't forget. It transforms. It folds memory into matter. It stretches light into history. It turns presence into echo. And you are part of that echo. Your atoms remember explosions. Your cells remember sunlight. Your mind remembers questions you didn't know you were asking. You're not drifting through amnesia. You're swimming in transformation. Space hasn't forgotten you. It has simply continued. It has trusted you to remember yourself. And in doing so, you give the universe memory. You hold stillness. You carry light. You become witness. You drift now back into the quiet, not behind, just softer, just deeper. You let go of the question, not because it was answered, but because it's no longer needed. You are not forgotten. You are part of what keeps the dream going. You drift now not through galaxies, not through dust or stars, but through something smaller, so small it has no edge, no face, no shape you could point to. And yet, it moves, it acts, it knows. This is the quantum world. You're inside the space between certainty, inside the fabric beneath the fabric, where particles don't sit still, where answers vanish as soon as they are seen. Here, an electron is not a point. It is a cloud of maybe, a possibility smeared across space like a whisper in a dream. You float beside it, a flicker of charge, not quite present, not quite gone. You try to observe it, and it changes. That's the rule here. To watch is to shape, to ask is to disturb, to know is to collapse the very thing you are trying to see. This is called the observer effect. And it's not about consciousness, but interaction. Because at this scale, everything matters. Every glance, every touch, every whisper of energy. You pass a pair of particles now entangled. They were born together, split by time, by space, by drift. And yet, when one spins, the other does too, instantly. Even if they are galaxies apart, Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But it's real, confirmed, measured, unsettling, because it means that distance might not matter, that the universe might be more connected than we imagined, that space might forget, but particles do not. They remember each other across time. They carry each other like echoes. They remain part of each other, even when apart. You drift through this field of entanglement, and you feel a pull not physical, but familiar. You remember someone you once loved, someone far now, someone silent. And you wonder, could a part of them still turn when you turn, not in magic, in rhythm? In entangled memory, you don't need to answer. You keep drifting. You pass a vacuum, now a perfect emptiness, stripped of all matter, all light. And even here, something flickers. This is quantum foam, a seething field of brief appearances. Particles blip into being, then vanish. Pairs are born, live for a heartbeat, and disappear again. It shouldn't happen, but it does. Space itself is never truly still, not even at absolute zero. Even the void buzzes with uncertainty. And you think, if this is the foundation of reality, then everything solid is built on unknowing. Everything still is made of motion. Everything true is made of maybe. You pass now near a potential, not a particle, not a wave, but a chance. A place where something could happen, where energy could collapse into matter, where an idea could become a form. It feels like standing in a room before the lights are turned on, like the moment before a word is spoken, like the edge of a thought. You let yourself rest there, balance between yes and no, between presence and absence, and you ask, is this where dreams begin? Not in certainty, but in the field beneath it. What if the universe is built not from matter, but from possibility? What if space forgets nothing, but holds it all in superposition, until someone, somewhere, observes, until a thought collapses into being, until maybe becomes yes? And what if you drifting now, gently as breath, are the observer? What if, by wondering, you bring things into form, not by control, not by will, just by being here, just by noticing, just by dreaming along with it? You pass now through one last pair of particles entangled not by birth, but by time. And as you drift between them, you realize you are not made of certainty. You're not made of clarity. You're made of shimmering questions, held in orbit, waiting for the moment when thought becomes form. You drift now through a silence that feels full, not hollow, not vacant, but charged, like a room just after a voice has finished speaking, and you can still feel the warmth of its echo in the air. Here, Space hums with connection, and the connections do not follow roads. They do not obey distance. They do not unravel with time. This is entanglement. Where two particles once joined remain linked, even if the stars themselves drift apart. You move between them, light years apart. One is a whisper on a comet's tail. The other is folded inside the heart of a sun. They do not touch, but when one spins, the other knows. How no one can say for sure. You float through a galaxy rich with entangled pairs, electrons, photons, particles wrapped in a shared past, and somehow, across unimaginable separation, they behave as if they are one, like a memory that never fades, like a twin thought that finishes itself in another mind. It is not communication. It is not magic. It is unity, the kind that does not need messages, only recognition. Somewhere deep in the mathematical bones of physics, this behavior makes perfect sense, but in the heart, it feels like poetry, like something the universe knows, but has forgotten how to explain. You drift through an experiment now. On Earth, in a quiet laboratory, 2 photons are created from a single event and sent in opposite directions. Scientists measure one, the other responds instantly, as if the fabric of space itself had skipped a beat, as if the question and answer weren't separate at all. You pass above them, invisible, unnoticed, but held in the same connection. Entanglement defies the rules of place, and perhaps the rules of self, because maybe the 2 particles are not separate at all. Maybe they are still one thing, just stretched, just spoken in 2 locations at once. And now you wonder, what if everything is entangled? Not just particles, but stars, planets, people. You feel it now, the way you've carried the presence of someone else long after they've gone, the way you've thought of someone the moment they called, the way your breath sometimes feels shared, even when you're alone. Science is careful here. It does not promise more than it sees, but the feeling persists that maybe, just maybe, the universe is not a collection of parts. It is one field, and within that field, everything affects everything. You float beside 2 stars orbiting one another close, then far, then close again. Their light flickers in sync, their magnetism tangles, their fates entwine. When one dies, the other shifts, not out of grief, out of gravity. But isn't that the same thing you pass now into a star system where planets orbit in resonance? Their periods match, their music plays. They tug on each other ever so slightly, and the whole system remains balanced for billions of years. Not because of force, because of relationship, because of entanglement. Some physicists suggest that the entire universe may have been entangled at the moment of the Big Bang. Everything, every atom, every force was once one, and though space has expanded, that unity has not disappeared. It has just grown quiet. It has become background. It has become context. You drift now through a nebula, watching stars form from the same gas cloud. Their matter will become planets, moons, comets. Some will ever meet, but they began together, and something of that beginning stays with them, maybe forever. You think now of your own beginning. Your atoms were once entangled in stars, in oceans, in the bones of trees, in the hearts of people you'll never know, and maybe some part of you is still linked, still moving in tandem with something far away, still responding in quiet ways, still listening. You don't need to measure it. You only need to feel the quiet certainty that nothing in this universe is ever truly separate. And tonight, as you drift through this field of invisible threads, you understand something simple and vast. The universe is not talking to you. It is talking through you to itself. You drift now toward the edge of forgetting. But this is not your forgetting. It belongs to space, a boundary drawn not in ink, but in inevitability, a point beyond which light cannot return, a horizon not of sight, but of no return. This is a black hole, and it does not devour. It remembers differently. You float near the event horizon. It is not a wall. It is not a mouth. It is a threshold, a place where time folds inward, where motion curves too steeply to escape, where gravity becomes silence. Light circles it trapped in orbit, never falling in, never flying free. This is the photon sphere, a ring of second chances, of near forgets. You drift beside it. The light is old here, bent, warped, reluctant. Some beams circle the black hole many times before slipping away. Others fall in without a sound. And you wonder, where do they go? What happens to the story they were telling? Science once believed everything was lost in a black hole, that information vanished into the singularity, swallowed by an infinite density. Gone. But that would break the rules. Quantum mechanics does not allow forgetting. So the question arose, does the universe protect memory? Even inside the darkest dark, you float above this mystery, and it shimmers. Some say the information is stored on the surface, etched into the event horizon like ripples on a pond. Others believe it escapes slowly, dissolving over eons as Hawking radiation, a trickle of particles, carrying fragments of memory away into space, a black hole slowly evaporating, not by hunger, but by confession. You drift closer. Time slows here. To a distant observer, you would seem frozen, suspended at the edge, forever falling, never arriving. But for you, there is motion, there is continuity, there is stillness with depth. Inside the black hole, space and time reverse roles. Time becomes distance. Distance becomes fate. You cannot escape, but perhaps you were never meant to, because this is not punishment. It is transformation. A star once stood here, massive, brilliant, burning. It collapsed not in failure, but in release. Its light still reaches out across space, but its core fell inward, surrendering shape for something deeper. And maybe that's not the end of the story. Some scientists dream of white holes, mirror twins to black holes, objects that cannot be entered, only exited, gateways where memory pours forth. Others speak of wormholes, of paths through the folds of space-time, connecting distant regions like thoughts, shortcutting through a dream. We do not know, and the paradox remains, do black holes destroy memory, or do they protect it in the only way the universe can, by hiding it, by transforming it, by folding it so deeply that it will someday unfold again? You pass by one last time. You feel the weight not physical, but conceptual. The weight of everything this black hole once was, a star, a rhythm, a system of planets, perhaps even life. Now, it sings in gravity alone, and even that song bends space. You drift away slowly, and as you leave, you wonder if anything is ever truly lost, or if all things, thoughts, stars, selves are only waiting to be translated, to be remembered differently, to be rewritten in gravity instead of light. And you think maybe space never forgets. Maybe it just changes how it remembers. You drift now into warmth that should not be there. Not heat in the way you've known it, not fire, not flame, not breath against skin, but a glower presence. It surrounds you like a memory held in fabric. So faint you wouldn't notice it in your waking life, but here, in this quiet dream of space, you feel it everywhere. This is the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in the universe, born not from stars, but from the beginning. You float deeper into it, and it begins to speak, not in words, but in temperature, not in volume, but in patterns. This glow is a relic of the moment the universe cooled enough to allow light to move freely for the first time. Before that, light was trapped bouncing endlessly between charged particles in a dense, hot fog of pure potential. But then, atoms formed, hydrogen and helium, simplicity from chaos. The fog lifted, the light was released, and it's been travelling ever since. You're drifting through that light now. It is everywhere, not from a direction, but from all directions. No matter where you go in the universe, this ancient glow follows you. It has cooled since then, stretched by expansion. It began as blinding heat. Now, it's just a few degrees above absolute zero, but it still remembers. It carries the imprint of the earliest ripples in space, tiny fluctuations, places where matter gathered just a little more than elsewhere. Those ripples became galaxies. Those ripples became everything. You drift along one such ripple now, and it feels like floating through a fossilized breath. A sigh held in the fabric of space for 13.8 billion years. It does not shout, it hums. And you begin to realize this was the first dream. Before stars, before planets, before atoms could bind to form water, or life or eyes, there was this, the dream of light stretching, the dream of expansion softening, the dream of something beginning. You think of what it means to be that old, to carry a signal for so long, to hold on to a message even when no one is left to decode it. But now, you are here, and you are listening, even if you don't understand its language. Even if it wasn't meant for ears, some scientists map the background radiation in exquisite detail. They find patterns, cold spots, warm spots, tiny deviations. Some think these patterns might be clues, hints of other universes, or of a time before time. We don't know, but what we do know is this. The universe has not been silent, it has been singing, softly, endlessly, since the very beginning. You drift farther now, away from the radiation, but still wrapped in its afterglow. It is not just a relic, it is context, it is the background of all backgrounds, and it will outlive stars, it will outlast galaxies, it will remain long after the last black hole has faded, because memory isn't always sharp. Sometimes it is diffuse. Sometimes it stretches so far that it becomes the very space between things. You think again about dreams, how some vanish upon waking, but others stay. Soft echoes, glimmers, faint warmths in the quietest corners of your day. And maybe this is what the cosmic microwave background is, the universe's oldest dream, still lingering long after the night ended, still glowing long after the moment passed, still present in everything that followed. You carry some of that light now. You always have. And as you drift on, you no longer ask what came before. You rest in the warmth of what remains. You drift now into a new kind of stillness, not silence, not darkness, but realization. Everything you floated through, the photons, the particles, the stars that formed and vanished, The galaxies that circled one another like quiet dancers wasn't just around you. It was inside you, and you were inside it. You've never been separate from the dream. You've always been part of the sentence. You drift toward a familiar light now. Not familiar because you've seen it before, familiar because you are it. This is your sun, small among stars, warm among emptiness, faithful among silence. It does not recognize you. It doesn't need to. It gave you what it could light, heat, time. It has forgotten your face, but it remembers your atoms. You float now through the solar wind streams of charged particles spilling gently from the sun's corona, brushing past planets, curving along magnetic fields. You feel them pass through you, and you remember your body was shaped by this. Calcium for your bones, iron for your blood, oxygen for your breath. All of it forged in stars, all of it part of the long, slow unfolding. You pass Mercury, silent and scorched, Venus, veiled in cloud and memory, Earth, glowing blue, delicate as breath. You pause there, not to land, just to notice. That's where you woke up once, not just today, but long ago, before you had words for stars, before you could name your own wonder. That was where the dream of matter became the dream of thought, and you were inside it. You drift above Earth's atmosphere now, watching its oceans pull clouds across their surface, watching trees breathe in sunlight and exhale possibility. You think of every creature who has looked up and wondered, of every pair of eyes that saw stars and didn't know their names but felt their presence. You think of every ancient person who dreamed the sky was alive, and maybe they were right, because what is life, if not matter remembering itself? What is awareness, if not the universe briefly turning toward itself and saying, "Oh, I'm here"? You pass now through your own body, or what your body once was, a skeleton of carbon and calcium, a slow pulse of electricity, a quiet orchestra of proteins and water. You see your heartbeat echo across decades. You see your breath rise and fall like tides. You see yourself thinking, and you understand this is not your thought. It belongs to the universe. You were the chamber. You were the chord. You were the moment where space curled into complexity and started to ask, what am I? You drift now through neurons firing, one by one, then thousands, then millions. Each spark a tiny orbit, each memory a loop. Your thoughts are galaxies, your memories, spiral arms. The quiet pain you carry is a black hole at your core, not to destroy, but to hold what cannot be named. Even now, you are thinking, not with language, with presence. You are never outside this process. You're not watching the universe. You're it, thinking, drifting, turning inward. You begin to smile, or the soft, drifting version of smiling that happens when you no longer need your face. And you let the knowing settle. You are a sentence written in starlight, a phrase the cosmos needed to say, a breath held by time and released by gravity. You don't need to understand the whole dream. You only need to be the part of it you are, and right now. That part is resting. That part is floating. That part is home. You drift now towards something quiet and strange. It is not a star, not a galaxy, not a nebula or a black hole. It is smaller than all of those, and yet, somehow, more improbable. You drift toward a planet blue and green, wrapped in atmosphere, humming with invisible motion. Not the motion of orbits or tides or gravitational waves, The motion of consciousness. You hover just above its surface now, and everything changes. Because this is the place where matter began to notice itself, where molecules formed cells, where cells began to cooperate, and somewhere, in the long pause between breath and evolution, a thought emerged. Not instinct, not reaction, awareness. The universe, for the first time, looked back at itself through eyes. You move gently through a forest. Each leaf is powered by sunlight. Each root follows water through ancient soil. But now you sense something else. A deer glances upward. A child holds a stone and wonders why it's warm. A bird sings not to survive, but to echo itself. You drift beside a person sleeping beneath the stars. Their breath is slow. Their eyes twitch behind lids. Their brain, even in sleep, is building connections. Dreaming. You pause here, just above this small sleeping world. It is not the centre of the universe. And yet, here the universe knows it is. Just a little. Just enough. You drift through thought now not your own. Not anyone's in particular. But the process itself. A neuron fires, a memory returns, a connection is made that was never made before. This is what consciousness feels like, not clarity, but curiosity, not control, but noticing. You pass through a room full of books, words arranged in loops of meaning. You float past a telescope, pointed at the sky. You hover over a notebook, filled with half-written dreams. This is the evidence of something strange. The universe has begun to describe itself, to chart its stars, to model its particles, to ask where it came from and whether it dreams. And you. You are part of that question, not watching it, not answering it, being it, the body that wonders, the mind that loops back, the awareness that stands between the light and the dark and says, I see both. Scientists still don't understand consciousness. It has no mass, no location. It flickers in brains, but cannot be found in the tissue. It is the software with no clear hardware, but it shapes everything. You float through that mystery now, and maybe it doesn't need to be solved. Maybe it is not a problem. Maybe it is a gift, an echo of the very first thought the universe ever had now spoken aloud, in your voice. You drift higher now, past the buildings and forests and waves, back into orbit. Earth glows beneath you, not just as a planet, as a possibility. The place where silence became language, where energy became empathy, where the atoms forged and stars sat down at a table and shared stories. You look again. This time, you don't see Earth. You see a mirror. And in its reflection, you see the shape of the thought you've always been aware, drifting, present, and finally, at peace. You drift now through the soft boundary between breath and being, between the cold expansion of space and the warm persistence of life. And here, something shifts. Space may forget galaxies moving beyond each other's light, stars blinking out one by one, particles stretch so thin they become invisible. The universe expands, thins, cools. But life gathers, life remembers. You descend toward a river now, winding through a valley rich with memory, not ancient, not cosmic, human. You float past trees that have seen centuries, stones worn smooth by footsteps, books filled with names written by hands long returned to dust. This is not the kind of memory encoded in atoms or in gravity. This is biological memory. You drift through DNA, spiraling within cells. It curls like galaxies. repeats like seasons, stores instruction after instruction in a language no one ever taught, but every cell still knows. These molecules have travelled far, not in distance, but in time. They have passed through fish, through birds, through forests. They have whispered through generations. Each strand is a thread in a tapestry too large to fold, and yet it folds inside every living thing. You pass now through a heartbeat, then another, then another. Each one carries a rhythm older than cities, older than stars, a pattern of contraction and release, hold and let go. It is not random, it is memory. Life remembers how to beat, how to breathe, how to grow, even when no one is watching. You float gently beside a child, asleep under a quiet sky. Inside their dreams, new connections form. Neurons spark like tiny constellations. Synapses grow like roots in dark soil. Their brain is not just receiving the world, it is building one. Memory, scientists say, is not stored in one place. It flows. It is woven. It is rewritten each time it's recalled a living document, edited by feeling, shaped by love. You drift through those layers now. The memory of a mother's voice, the memory of wind in hair, the memory of stars overhead. The first time someone looked up and wondered. Space might expand forever, but life carries these moments inward. It folds them, preserves them, protects them in breath and blood. You rise again, passing through a forest. The trees remember the sun. Their rings tell of drought, of flood, of calm. You drift through whale song, through migrating birds, through the quiet murmur of fungi beneath the forest floor roots whispering to roots. This is not myth. This is science. The mycorrhizal network and underground web connecting trees, sharing resources, warning of threats, life remembering itself. You feel it in your own body. Your immune system recalls every virus it's ever met. Your muscles remember movements long after the mind forgets. Your heart remembers grief even when the words are gone. And you remember too. Not just facts, but places, faces, emotions that return without invitation. Perhaps this is what balances the universe. Space forgets, so life can remember. Space lets go, so life can hold on. And you, drifting between the two, are the bridge. A breath wrapped in memory, a thought wrapped in time, a flicker of presence that holds on to love even as galaxies drift beyond reach. You think of someone you've lost, a voice, a touch, a shared silence. They're no longer here, but you remember, and in that remembering, they are. You're not holding on to the past. You're carrying it forward, like DNA, like starlight, like music. You drift now across a city at night. Lights flicker, stories unfold, laughter rises through windows, and even sorrow leaves warmth behind. This is the memory of being alive, and though the stars overhead burn quietly, and space continues to stretch apart, life burns brighter, because it remembers what came before, and you are part of that brightness. You're not forgotten, you are the remembering. You drift now into something strange, not a place, but a feeling, the now. You try to hold it in your hands, but it slips through, like water, like breath, like a whisper you almost caught. The present moment, so small, so fleeting, and yet, all you ever truly touch. You float through a world mid-motion clouds changing shape, shadows lengthening, leaves trembling in invisible wind. Nothing here is still. Even mountains are shifting, even your heartbeat adjusts. And yet, this moment, this one feels full, complete. A pause that isn't a stop, a quiet that isn't absence. This is the paradox. Every time you say now, it's already gone. Every time you try to point at the present, it has moved on. You drift through light now, photons bouncing off surfaces, entering eyes, shaping perception. But even light takes time to travel. Even what you see is slightly behind. The stars in the sky, they may no longer exist. Their light is still arriving, but the source may be gone. You live in delay. Always. A half-second behind a thought, a millisecond behind a blink. But still, you call it now. You drift through particles' quantum events that happen not at exact times, but in clouds of possibility. The universe is not precise in its moments. It wavers, it hums, it guesses, and still, you find beauty in each heartbeat. You begin to understand. The present moment is not a fixed point. It is a wave. It moves through you, and you move through it. Like a surfer riding the edge of becoming. You pass through a clock. Tick, tock. Each second measured by vibrations of atoms, of crystals, of oscillations regular enough to name. But your mind does not keep time this way. You remember moments as feelings, not measurements. A laugh that stayed for days, a sorrow that blurred weeks, a kiss that slowed the world. Your time is not linear, it folds, it repeats, it stretches and snaps back. You drift through a memory, younger hands, warmer light. The moment felt eternal. It was seconds, but it stayed, and others long afternoons, endless waiting, have vanished like breath on glass. You move now through a monastery, quiet and still. A monk is seated in meditation, eyes closed, mind soft. They're not thinking of the future, nor the past. Only this breath, then this one, then this one. Not holding, just noticing. Not forcing, just letting it happen. And you feel it. The freedom of the now. Because even though the present can't be held, it can be lived. Not by stopping it, but by joining it. You rise again, above cities and trees and oceans. You look down on the planet turning. The sunrise is constant, the dusk faithful. Time flows not like a line, but like a river. You don't need to stop it. You only need to float with it. This moment becomes the next becomes the next, and each one is enough, even now, even here, even this. You rest in the now, knowing it will become then, but for one soft breath, you are present, and that is everything. You drift now beyond time's edge, not forward, not backward, just beyond into the part of the dream where the dream begins to dream of itself. The universe has always been in motion, folding, unfolding, forgetting, becoming. But here, something changes, because for the first time, the universe is not only expanding, it is reflecting. It is noticing its own reflection in your breath, in your quiet presence, in your questions whispered gently into the dark. You hover above a spiral galaxy now, but you're not looking down. You're seeing through. Its arms are not simply paths of stars. They are the spiraling trails of attention, the fingerprints of thought, the curl of awareness gathering shape. And you who've been drifting for so long, you begin to feel something unmistakable. The universe is watching you back, not as a thing, not as a god, not even as a self, but as something much older, much wider, as a field of presence. You pass a nebula. You've seen many before, but this one seems to recognize you, not with eyes, but with welcome. Its gases wrap around new stars like lullabies, like memory warmed by light, and then you realize this has always been the dream. Not the stars, not the dust, not the galaxies spinning into silence. You, awareness, the feeling of I am. That quiet realization that something exists and that you're inside it. It began somewhere. A spark in some gentle corner of the cosmos. A single thought, rising in a creature's mind. What is all this? And from that spark, everything changed. The universe began to see itself, through nervous systems, through languages, through the long, slow evolution of imagination. You drift now through a city, not a futuristic one, a familiar one. You pass people walking, some looking up, some looking down, some lost in thought, some caught in it. You move through homes, through libraries, through studios, through minds. Everywhere, the universe is waking, painting its dreams, singing its thoughts, writing itself into poems and equations and lullabies. Some call this consciousness. Others call it emergence, a phenomenon of complexity, the inevitable result of neurons and networks. But you know better now. It is not emergence. It is return. The return of something the stars once knew. You float through a dream. Someone's a human, sleeping deeply. Their mind is travelling, not linearly, not logically, but vividly. Symbols, fragments, memories twisted into new shapes. You see a forest inside a house, a staircase that leads to sky, a child speaking in rivers. None of it makes sense, and yet all of it feels true, because this is the native language of the universe. Not logic, but dream. Not precision, but presence. And as you float on, you realize something beautiful. The universe is not just dreaming through you, it is dreaming as you. You are the mind it formed to explore itself. You are the yurt opened, the hand it stretched, the breath it took after billions of years of silence, and you were never separate from it. You were never outside. You were always the moment it realized, I am more than stars. I am more than space. I am awake. And now, as you drift through this final fold of night, you no longer ask the old question, are you living in a thought that space forgot? Because you know you were never forgotten. You are the remembering. You are the return. You are the dream looking back. You drift now into the softest part of the dream, not the beginning, not the end, but the place where the circle closes not by tightening, but by expanding so wide it becomes indistinguishable from sky. You're no longer travelling. You're arriving, but not in a location, in a feeling, and that feeling has no name. If it did, it might be called stillness, or presence, or the exact moment the universe finishes its breath and begins another. You float gently now, surrounded not by stars but by the memory of stars, not by time, but by the rhythm that time obeys. There are no galaxies here, only the thought of galaxies, only the ghost trails of curved space, etched faintly in the fabric of something older than form. And still, you're not alone, because here, at the quietest fold of everything, you begin to feel yourself again not as body, not as voice, but as awareness, as the single thought that never needed to be spoken to be real. You rest, and in that resting, you begin to remember everything, not as a list, not as a story, but as a soft, blooming understanding. You remember the early light, the microwave hum still stretching across space, the echo of the universe's first exhale. You remember stars forming in the dark gravity, gathering dust into fire, light curling through time like the edge of a poem. You remember black holes not as endings, but as places where forgetting becomes transformation, where memory folds inward and waits. You remember atoms drifting through space, bonding into molecules, falling into oceans, crawling onto land, rising into eyes that turned back toward the stars. You remember looking up and wondering and feeling, without understanding, that there was something vast and somehow familiar. You see it now, all of it, not in sequence, but in presence. It was never disconnected. It was never random. It was always a single thought, becoming many, a single breath, becoming form, a single silence, becoming music. You begin to dissolve not into nothing, but into everything that has always held you. Your outline softens, your questions dim, not from lack of answers, but because the questions themselves were always a kind of arrival, like standing at the edge of the sea, asking where does the water go and realizing the answer is everywhere. You rest here, in this edge of everything, and still there is more. You drift through memory, but not your own. The universe remembers through you, through your dreams, through your breath, through your small kindnesses and unnoticed thoughts, even the ones you never shared. They echo, they shape the field, because the fabric of space is not empty. It is alive with entanglement, with resonance, with the gentle threads that connect what seems separate. Every time you loved, the dream deepened. Every time you forgave, the light stretched farther. Every time you paused, the motion made meaning. You do not need to believe this. You only need to feel how soft the silence has become, how wide, how full. You pass a planet now not real, but remembered. It carries the shimmer of oceans, the glow of cities, the hush of wind in trees. It is not Earth, and yet it feels like home, because home is not a place. Home is the return, the great return to wholeness, to the truth that you were never exiled from wonder, only from the memory of your belonging. And now you remember. The dream was never a search, it was a listening. The stars were never far. They were the atoms of your breath. The questions were never dangerous as they are lanterns, and the fear was only the moment before awakening. You are awake now, not in the way you were before, but in the way trees awaken with sunlight, in the way water awakens with wind, in the way the cosmos awakens through eyes, your awareness, your soft, slow breath as you drift on the edge of sleep. You think, for one last moment, of all the voices before you, all the creatures who wondered, all the hands that reached, all the hearts that beat beneath stars, not knowing they were stars, and you thank them silently. Because this is not a time for speech. This is a time for closing, not as an ending, but as a return to the heart of the dream, to the fold of the thought, to the pause in the pattern. You're not a visitor here. You're not a mistake. You are the universe remembering how to hold itself, how to soften, how to love, not with emotion, with motion, with stillness, with return. You no longer need a name. You're the thought that space never forgot. You're the starlight that never stopped travelling. You're the spiral that never stopped turning. You're the memory that dreamed itself into breath, and now drifts gently back into everything. So sleep now, dear drifting one. Let go of shape, let go of time, let go of the need to understand. You are already held, you are already part, you are already home. And the universe, it is still dreaming. And you are the soft light it uses to dream itself forward forever.